Imagine opening your eyes to a world without sound, a world where nothing moves unless you make it move, and every breath you take echoes softly inside your helmet like a distant memory. The first thing you feel is the gentle pull of low gravity, almost as if the moon is holding you, but barely touching you, letting your arms and legs float for a moment before you gather yourself. The air inside your habitat tastes slightly metallic, filtered and recycled countless times, yet strangely clean, almost sterile, as if nothing truly alive has passed through it. Outside your small window, the surface of the moon lies still and untouched, a vast grey desert stretching in every direction, frozen in time, where shadows fall like painted shapes and the horizon curves in a way that feels both familiar and impossibly foreign. If you truly lived here, not for minutes or hours but for months, your days would begin with the same soft hiss of pressurized doors adjusting themselves, the same faint hum of the oxygen pumps, the same weightless sensation each time you swing your legs out of your sleeping pod. You would stretch your body carefully, feeling your muscles respond slowly, almost lazily, to the fraction of Earth's gravity, as if your bones and joints were relearning how to exist in a place where everything is lighter, quieter, gentler. As you prepare for the day, you would feel the silence outside pressing against the walls of your habitat. Not a threatening silence, but a deep and ancient one. The kind that makes you aware of every heartbeat and every breath. Stepping into your suit would become a ritual. The slow zip of the inner lining, the faint click of the helmet locking into place, the soft vibration of the life support unit powering on. And then comes the moment you step outside, where suddenly the world becomes a painting. There is no wind, no rustling, no distant animals, no cars, no voices, nothing but the absolute stillness of a celestial body that has slept untouched for billions of years. The ground beneath your boots feels powdery and crisp, like stepping into cold ash, and each step sends tiny clouds of lunar dust rising slowly, floating longer than they ever would on Earth before settling back into place. If you lived on the moon, light itself would behave differently around you. Shadows would appear darker, sharper, almost unreal, and the sunlight, unfiltered by any atmosphere, would fall harsh and bright, coating everything with a glowing, almost metallic sheen. Yet despite its brightness, the world would remain eerily calm. There is no sky fading from blue to gold, no air carrying warmth toward you, no gentle breeze brushing your skin. Only the void, only the silence, only the slow rhythm of your body adapting to an environment that feels both lonely and strangely peaceful. And as you take your first steps across the grey expanse, you might find yourself wondering, how long would it take before this place begins to feel like home? How would your body, your sleep, your routines, your emotions, your sense of time itself change in a world that never truly wakes and never truly sleeps? Today, you will discover exactly what life on the moon would be like. Not just the science, but the experience of living in this silent world, day after day, in a place where even your thoughts sound louder than the universe around you. As you begin to walk across the lunar surface, the first thing you notice is how the ground reacts to your every step. Not with the crunch of gravel or the shift of sand like on Earth, but with a soft, powdery displacement that moves slowly, almost reluctantly, as if the dust has been waiting centuries for someone to disturb it. This dust, known as regolith, is older than any human civilization, created by billions of years of meteor impacts that shattered rock into fine, jagged particles that cling to everything they touch. Under your boots, it feels oddly delicate, even though each grain is sharp enough to scratch metal. But the low gravity makes your steps feel light, reducing the pressure your body applies with each movement. Every footstep sends up a gentle fountain of grey powder that hangs in the airless void far longer than you expect before settling silently back onto the surface. As you walk, you see the landscape stretching endlessly, Smooth plains formed from ancient volcanic activity, rolling fields of ash-like dust, and countless craters that rise and fall like frozen waves across a silent ocean. Some of these craters are small enough to step over, while others stretch for kilometers, their edges sharp and defined, untouched by wind or rain or any erosion. Time does not reshape this world. Everything remains as it has always been, sculpted only by occasional impacts from space. In the distance, you might notice darker regions called lunar maria, vast basalt plains created by eruptions billions of years ago. Standing near them, you see the contrast between the lighter highlands and the darker seas, a pattern so recognizable from Earth yet so different when experienced up close. The highlands feel rougher, filled with ancient jagged rocks that seem almost fragile, while the maria appear smoother and more uniform, like immense parking lots carved from stone. And as your eyes adjust to the stark lighting of the moon, you begin to perceive details that photographs never convey. The way shadows fall sharply like black ink on white paper, the way rocks appear sharper and more defined, and how distant features seem closer because there is no atmospheric haze to soften them. Far above you, the sky remains a deep, endless black, even when the sun is shining directly overhead. Without an atmosphere, there is no blue, no scattering light, no gradients. Stars do not twinkle, they simply exist, constant and silent, visible even in the daytime if you stand in the shadow of a rock or your lander. The sun, on the other hand, is blindingly bright, radiating with a clarity that feels almost artificial, because nothing softens its glare. You feel no warmth on your skin, your suit shields you completely, but the sunlight itself is harsh, unfiltered by any sky. As you turn around slowly, your footprints form a gentle trail behind you, a quiet record of your presence in a place where nothing erases footprints. If humans lived here for decades, the first steps of explorers, settlers, and workers might remain unchanged for centuries or even longer, preserved in the stillness of this airless world. Walking further, you approach the edge of a shallow crater and look down at its interior. Slopes of fine dust leading toward a center filled with rocks of different sizes, scattered randomly by impacts that occurred millions of years apart. Each rock tells a story. Some are fragments from deep within the moon's crust. Others are pieces of asteroids that struck the surface at unimaginable speeds. The silence inside the crater feels even deeper, as if the world itself is holding its breath. You take another slow step, your boots sliding slightly on the incline, and notice how your body instinctively adjusts to the lower gravity, letting you take longer, more effortless strides without fear of falling. There is no rush, no noise, no wind to push you forward or hold you back, just the soft crunch of dust underfoot and the steady rhythm of your breathing inside your helmet. And as you continue exploring this ancient, untouched terrain, you begin to understand what it truly means to walk on a world that has never known life, never felt rain, never heard a sound. A world where time moves differently, where every stone and every crater exists in a kind of eternal pause. As you continue moving across the lunar surface, the gentle pull of low gravity becomes something you're constantly aware of, not because it makes movement difficult, but because it changes the way your body expects the world to respond. On Earth, every step you take brings a familiar weight, a reassuring sense of grounding that keeps you anchored. But here, each step feels more like a controlled float, as if your body is performing its movements in slow motion. When you lift your foot, it rises with almost no effort, your legs swinging higher and farther than you intended. When you set it down, the impact is so soft that it hardly feels like contact at all. Over time, you learn to adjust, bending your knees slightly more, leaning forward a little less, spacing your steps so that your natural momentum doesn't push you too far. Even the simple act of standing still feels different. Your muscles work subtly to maintain balance because the reduced gravity changes the way your center of mass shifts. If you lived here for months, these adjustments would become second nature. shaping the way you move through your habitat, your workspaces, and the open plains outside. Inside your lunar home, you would notice these effects even more. Sitting down would feel like easing into a pool of air, your body descending slowly until you meet the surface of the chair. Lying down would feel gentle, almost weightless, with your mattress barely pushing back against your body. Even stretching would take on a new sensation, your limbs moving more freely, as if the tension that normally holds you together has softened. Over time, your muscles would subtly change, becoming less accustomed to the constant load they carry on Earth. Your legs might weaken slightly, unless you followed a strict exercise routine designed to mimic the gravitational pressure your bones and muscles need to stay strong. Walking on a treadmill while strapped down with elastic bands would become a daily ritual, as important as eating or sleeping, preventing your body from losing too much strength in the lunar environment. Jumping would feel effortless. A motion that on Earth takes force and energy here becomes a smooth, elongated lift, propelling you upward with unexpected ease. Your body would rise higher than you ever could back home, and for a brief moment, you would feel suspended, almost floating, before drifting down in a slow, graceful arc. Even a small hop inside your habitat might send you gently upward toward the ceiling if you're not careful. Tasks that rely on precise control could feel strange at first. Reaching for an object might cause you to overshoot. Pushing off a wall might send you drifting farther than intended. Carrying tools or equipment might require adjusting your grip so they don't slip from your hands with the slightest motion. If you were to drop something accidentally, it would fall slowly, almost lazily, giving you time to watch it descend in a long, smooth path before settling softly on the floor. Your sense of balance would shift gradually as your inner ear adjusts to the new environment, and you might find that simple habits, like standing up quickly or turning your head too fast, create a momentary sense of lightheadedness or disorientation. Sleeping in reduced gravity could also feel different at first. Without the familiar pressure of your body against the mattress, you might feel like you're hovering, even though you are resting normally. You could drift slightly if you shift in your sleep, and your body would take longer to settle into a comfortable position. Over time, your brain would adapt, learning to interpret the unusual signals coming from your muscles and joints, until the strange sensation of weightlessness during rest becomes normal. And as days turn into weeks and weeks into months, you might find that the moon's gravity starts to feel more familiar than Earth's ever did, creating a new sense of normality, a world where every movement is slow, measured, floating, and free from the heaviness you once took for granted. As the days pass on the moon, you quickly realize that time behaves differently here, not because clocks run slower or faster, but because light itself follows a rhythm unlike anything on Earth. A single lunar day, from sunrise to sunrise, lasts roughly 29.5 Earth days, which means that the period of daylight stretches on for about 2 weeks, followed by another 2 weeks of uninterrupted night. If you lived here, this slow, deliberate cycle would shape your entire routine, influencing when you work, when you rest, and even how your body perceives the passing of time. During the long lunar daytime, sunlight pours over the landscape with a brightness that feels strangely constant, never shifting into golden or red tones because there is no atmosphere to scatter the light. Instead, the sun rests in a black sky, casting harsh, silvery illumination that remains almost unchanged for days. Shadows stretch sharply across the ground, creating patterns that shift so slowly they might as well be standing still. Inside your habitat, artificial lighting becomes essential, not to protect you from darkness, but to soften the overwhelming brightness that surrounds you. Curtains or shutters might shield certain rooms, giving you the option of a gentler environment where the harshness of lunar daylight cannot intrude. Without a natural sunrise or sunset to cue your internal clock, you would depend entirely on scheduled routines, alarms, and soft lighting cycles to maintain a sense of morning, afternoon, and night. Your sleep schedule would be regulated by your habitat's illumination panels, programmed to fade gently before you rest and brighten slowly as your day begins. But the most striking experience comes with the arrival of lunar night. When the sun finally dips below the horizon, a motion so slow that it seems to drag across the sky, darkness takes over instantly, without the gradient of twilight that softens evenings on Earth. The stars emerge immediately, crisp and unwavering, scattered across the blackness with a clarity that feels almost surreal. The temperature outside begins to drop rapidly, plunging to levels far colder than anything found naturally on Earth's surface. If you stepped outside during lunar night, you would feel none of that cold through your suit, but the surrounding stillness would seem deeper, quieter, more profound than ever. With no sunlight to reflect off the dust, the moon becomes a world of contrasts. Bright starlight overhead and pitch-black terrain beneath your feet, where even your own shadow seems to dissolve into the emptiness. For 2 weeks of darkness, the only reliable illumination within your habitat would be the artificial lights you control. Your sleep might feel more natural here, guided by the soft glow of lamps or dimmed ambient lighting, rather than the harsh brightness of lunar day. The extended night could create a sense of calm, giving your mind a chance to settle into a slower rhythm. Yet this same endless darkness might also blur your perception of time, making days feel longer or shorter depending on the structure you maintain. Researchers believe that long lunar days and nights would gradually influence your circadian rhythm, the internal clock that governs sleep and alertness. Without regular cues like sunrise or sunset, your natural cycle might drift, lengthening or shortening slightly unless carefully regulated. To counter this, your habitat would likely have a meticulously designed lighting system that simulates Earth's 24-hour day, helping your body preserve its familiar rhythms. Over months, living under this artificial cycle would feel normal, even comforting, creating a sense of routine in a place where nature refuses to provide one. And as you move between the blinding brightness of lunar day and the deep stillness of lunar night, you would realize that life here is less about adapting to external conditions and more about creating your own internal structure, maintaining a steady, peaceful rhythm in a world where the sky never truly changes. Living on the moon would mean spending most of your time inside a pressurized habitat, a structure designed not for luxury or comfort, but for safety, stability, and quiet endurance. The moment you step inside, the overwhelming brightness and stillness of the lunar surface fade behind you, replaced by a soft, controlled environment where every sound comes from something familiar. The low hum of air recyclers, the steady vibration of oxygen pumps, the occasional click of thermal regulators adjusting the temperature. At first, these sounds might seem intrusive, but over time they become a backdrop to your daily life, a gentle, mechanical heartbeat that reminds you the habitat is working exactly as it should. The air inside feels clean and slightly dry, carrying no scents except the faint metallic undertone of machinery and the sterile smell of processed filters. Each room is designed with minimalism in mind: smooth, curved walls to distribute pressure evenly, soft LED lights that can shift from bright to dim depending on your schedule, and surfaces coated with materials that resist lunar dust, which clings stubbornly to anything it touches. Your living quarters would likely be compact, not cramped but intentionally simple. A small sleeping pod, just large enough for you to lie comfortably, a workstation with a foldable chair, storage compartments built neatly into the walls. Everything has its place and purpose. You might come to appreciate the predictability of this environment, the way nothing changes unless you change it, creating a sense of calm consistency that contrasts with the harsh unpredictability of space outside. As you move through the habitat, you would feel a subtle shift in its atmosphere, not in temperature or pressure, but in the sensation of being sheltered. The interior lighting is designed to mimic natural daylight cycles, gently brightening in the morning hours and fading into warm, muted tones by the time you're ready to rest. During the longer lunar day, these artificial cycles would help your mind maintain a sense of time, preserving the illusion of mornings and evenings even when the world outside remains bright for weeks. In the communal areas, small details would bring comfort. A table anchored to the floor to prevent objects from drifting, padded seating designed for low gravity, storage for dehydrated meals and hydration packs. Preparing food would be a quiet process, with each step slowed by the environment. Cutting, heating, mixing, everything done with care to avoid objects floating gently out of reach. Meals themselves might be simple, but the ritual of gathering to eat would feel grounding, a moment of routine in a place that challenges your sense of normality. The habitat's observation windows would become one of your favorite places, offering a view of the lunar terrain that feels both distant and intimate. You might find yourself standing there for long stretches, watching the shadows shift imperceptibly across the landscape, or observing the earth hanging in the black sky like a silent blue marble. These moments of stillness could become essential, giving you space to breathe, reflect, and appreciate the unique quiet that only the moon can offer. At times, you might become aware of just how isolated the habitat is, a fragile bubble of life surrounded by an ancient, airless world. But instead of feeling fear, you might find peace in the simplicity of your surroundings. There are no crowds, no traffic, no unexpected noises, no rushing from place to place. Life on the moon is measured, deliberate, and unhurried. Each task takes time, each movement requires intention. Each routine brings structure to your day. Over weeks and months, you would grow accustomed to the low-gravity sway of your steps, the soft vibration of life support systems, and the comforting routine that defines life inside your lunar home. Until eventually, the habitat no longer feels like a temporary shelter, but a quiet, steady refuge from the vast stillness outside. Daily life on the moon would also change the way you interact with something as simple and familiar as food, turning ordinary routines like eating and drinking into calm, deliberate rituals shaped by the environment around you. Without a true atmosphere or natural water sources, everything you consume must be carefully prepared inside the habitat, where temperature, pressure, and humidity are controlled with precision. Meals would usually come in compact, lightweight packaging designed to last for months without spoiling. Opening one of these packs, you might find dehydrated vegetables, powdered soups, freeze-dried fruits, or protein-rich meals that need only a small amount of water to come back to life. The process of preparing food becomes almost therapeutic. You take a packet, attach it to the water injector, and watch as warm water slowly fills the pouch, softening its contents and releasing a faint smell that reminds you of meals on Earth. You knead the pouch gently, ensuring the mixture absorbs evenly, and then let it rest for a few minutes before transferring it to a bowl or eating it directly from the pack. Every step must be done with care, because even a small spill behaves differently in reduced gravity, liquids sometimes forming thick, wobbling spheres that float before settling, and crumbs drifting instead of falling. Inside your habitat, the air is clean but dry, so hydration becomes more important than ever. Drinking water feels slightly different here. Instead of pouring from a bottle into a glass, you often drink through a flexible straw attached to pouches that prevent the liquid from floating away. Each sip is controlled, smooth, and quiet, with no splashing or clinking. Even something as simple as making tea or a warm drink becomes a gentle, methodical process. Heating water in a sealed container, infusing the bag or powder, and waiting as the warmth spreads slowly through the cup, offering a moment of comfort in an environment where warmth is something you create, not something the world provides. Cooking in the traditional sense, sizzling pans, boiling pots, and open flames, would be impossible here. Instead, you rely on compact appliances, rehydrators, small convection heaters, and sealed ovens that warm meals evenly without releasing steam or odors into the controlled atmosphere. The quiet hum of these devices blends into the background noise of the habitat, adding to the sense of calm. Over time, these routines become second nature, forming a familiar rhythm that anchors your day. Eating with others in the habitat adds a sense of community, even if the meals are simple. You sit around a softly lit table, your bowls anchored by magnetic bases, your utensils designed to keep food from drifting away. Conversations are gentle, unhurried, and often reflective, as if the moon encourages a slower, more thoughtful way of speaking. The low gravity changes the texture of food as well. Meals feel lighter, and your body processes them differently since your digestive system is not working against the same gravitational pull it is used to. Even the act of swallowing feels subtly altered, not difficult, but quietly unusual, like everything else here. Occasionally, you may receive special shipments from Earth, fresh fruits, packaged treats, or something as simple as bread. And these become moments of celebration, quiet reminders of home. You savor each bite slowly, knowing that fresh food is rare and precious on the moon. And as you finish your meal, cleaning up becomes another mindful task, wiping surfaces carefully so that no dust or crumbs remain, securing utensils in their compartments, sealing waste bags so that nothing escapes into the habitat's delicate systems. Living on the moon teaches you to appreciate the simplicity of food in a new way. Meals are not rushed or taken for granted. They are calm moments that divide the day, rituals that ground you in a world where everything else feels weightless and silent. In time, you come to realize that these routines, hydrating, heating, stirring, sharing, do more than nourish your body. They nourish your sense of stability, turning each meal into a small island of comfort in the vast stillness of lunar life. Working on the moon would be unlike any job you have ever experienced on Earth, not because the tasks themselves are complicated, but because everything you do must be performed slowly, deliberately, and with an awareness of your surroundings that becomes almost meditative over time. Each day would begin with a quiet review of your assignments, displayed on softly glowing screens inside the habitat. Equipment checks, surface inspections, scientific observations, or maintenance routines that keep the base operating smoothly. There is no rush, no sense of urgency, because nothing on the moon allows for haste. The environment demands patience. Before stepping outside, you would prepare your suit with the same calm routine you follow every day. Attaching the cooling layer, adjusting the communication pads inside the helmet, checking oxygen levels, and making sure every seal is perfectly aligned. The process is long but comforting, like a familiar ritual that signals the beginning of a new work cycle. Once you leave the habitat, the stillness of the lunar surface surrounds you again, and even if you have a list of tasks to complete, the lack of sound slows your thoughts. Walking to your work site becomes an experience in itself, each step sending soft clouds of dust upward, each movement steady and controlled to conserve energy. Your tasks might involve collecting rock samples, and this too becomes a slow, methodical activity. Kneeling down requires planning, so you don't lose balance in the low gravity. Scooping lunar soil demands gentle movements so it doesn't drift away. Sealing the sample containers must be done carefully, so no dust escapes into your suit's joints or filters. Everything has to be precise, not out of panic, but because carefulness is simply how things work here. If part of your job includes maintaining solar panels, you would approach long rows of them, stretching across the surface like quiet mirrors, brushing away accumulated dust with soft, controlled sweeps. Even this simple task feels reflective. Each motion measured, each panel cleaned in silence, each moment spent with nothing but the sound of your own breathing. Inside the habitat, work continues with studies, logs, equipment testing, and data interpretation. Screens glow softly in the dim light, displaying seismic readings, atmospheric simulations, geological scans, and progress updates from instruments placed kilometers away. You might spend hours reviewing this information, documenting your observations, and adjusting equipment through remote arms designed to operate in the hostile lunar environment. These tasks are quiet, repetitive, and oddly soothing, offering a sense of purpose without the pressure of constant noise or interruptions. Communication with Earth happens in structured windows, with signals traveling across the void at the speed of light, but still taking just over a second to reach their destination. The slight delay creates a rhythm of conversation that feels slower, more deliberate, almost contemplative. You speak, you wait, you listen. It's a pace that gradually becomes natural, especially in an environment where everything, from walking to eating to working, moves with a calm, unhurried flow. Occasionally, you may need to perform repairs on exterior equipment, such as antennas, thermal radiators, or navigation beacons. These tasks require even more attention, not because they are dangerous, but because the moon offers no margin for careless gestures. Screws must be turned slowly, cables must be connected precisely, tools must be secured so they don't drift away if you release them. Yet even this meticulous work feels peaceful, accompanied only by the muted vibrations of your gloves and the faint feedback from your suit systems. As the days blend into weeks, work on the moon becomes part of a quiet routine that gives shape to your life. There are no sudden demands, no unexpected noises, no traffic, no crowds, no background chatter, just the rhythm of your tasks, the steady hum of the habitat, and the predictable cycles of maintenance, research, documentation, and rest. In this way, work becomes less of a duty and more of a grounding force, something that anchors your mind in the steady calm of lunar living, turning each day into a slow, peaceful progression through activities that remind you that you are part of something larger, even in a world where silence reigns. Traveling across the lunar surface, whether for work, exploration, or simple observation, becomes one of the most distinct experiences of living on the moon. Movement here is slow and deliberate, shaped by the terrain, the low gravity, and the complete absence of atmosphere. When you step into a lunar rover, you settle into a padded seat designed to keep you steady as the vehicle glides over uneven ground. The rover starts with a gentle hum, powered by quiet electric motors that make almost no sound in the vacuum outside, leaving you with only the soft vibrations through the frame as confirmation that you are moving. Looking through the wide, reinforced windows, you notice how the landscape passes by in a strangely peaceful way. No dust clouds rising behind you, no wind pushing against the vehicle, no engine noise to accompany your progress. Instead, the moon seems to drift beneath you, each bump and dip absorbed by the rover's suspension in slow, rhythmic motions that lull your mind into a calm, reflective state. The scenery itself feels timeless, stretches of grey plains that ripple faintly with gentle hills, scattered rocks that vary in size from fist-sized fragments to massive boulders, and the gentle curvature of the horizon always reminding you that you are standing on a small world. As you travel, you pass through regions where the ground grows darker, the basaltic maria forming vast, smooth expanses that look almost like dried lakes. Then in contrast, you might enter a field of lighter highland terrain, where jagged rocks and brighter dust give the impression of an ancient, untouched landscape. At times, the rover climbs gentle slopes that lead toward crater rims, each ascent slow and steady, until suddenly a wide depression opens before you, an enormous crater floor stretching for kilometers, its interior silent and unchanging. The rover handles these transitions with quiet ease, its tires designed to grip the fine dust without sinking. The moon's reduced gravity allows the vehicle to move more smoothly than it would on Earth, but this also means you must steer carefully, avoiding sudden turns that could send the rover drifting more than intended. The entire experience feels less like driving and more like gliding, each movement extended and softened by the environment. Occasionally, you may stop the rover to step outside and observe a particular feature. When you open the hatch, the silence outside is instant and absolute, enveloping you the moment your boots touch the powdery ground. You might walk a few steps away from the rover, feeling its presence behind you like a tiny island of human technology in an endless ocean of quiet. You bend down to examine a rock, noticing how sharply its edges are preserved. No wind, rain, or erosion to smooth them over. Every object you see looks ancient, untouched, frozen in the exact state it has been for millions or billions of years. Resuming your journey, you continue across the landscape, often covering long distances at a steady, unhurried pace. The view outside changes slowly and predictably, giving you time to simply observe. You might notice how the sun casts the same shape of your shadow hour after hour, shifting so gradually that it feels as if the entire world is paused in a single moment. You might watch the earth hanging in the sky, rotating ever so slowly, glowing softly against the blackness of space. The longer you travel, the more these sights become familiar and calming, forming a quiet rhythm of movement and stillness. Even returning to the habitat after a long excursion feels peaceful. The structure appears in the distance, like a tiny glimmer against the grey, growing slowly larger as the rover approaches. The closer you come, the more comforting it feels, your refuge in a world where silence reigns. And as you park the rover gently in its docking bay, disconnect your restraints, and step back inside, you carry with you the lingering sense of vastness and quiet that defines every journey on the moon, a feeling that stays with you long after the dust has settled from your last step. One of the most unforgettable aspects of living on the moon is the sky. A view so different from anything on Earth that it can take your breath away even after months of seeing it every day. Because there is no atmosphere here, no air to scatter light, no particles to tint the horizon, the sky remains a deep, perfect black at all times, even when the sun is shining directly overhead. It feels almost unreal, like a window into an infinite void. Yet it is the most accurate view of the universe you can experience without leaving solid ground. During lunar day, the sun appears incredibly bright, its white light crisp and unfiltered, radiating sharply against the black sky without any halo or surrounding glow. Shadows fall in stark, ink-like patterns that remain sharply defined no matter the angle. But even in the sunlight, if you stand in the shadow of a rock or the rover, you can look up and immediately see stars. They do not twinkle, they shine steadily, each point of light perfectly still, like tiny holes punched into a sheet of darkness. Some nights on the moon are not nights at all, but long stretches of time where the sun never rises or sets. During the 2-week-long lunar night, the sky becomes even more striking. The stars seem brighter, not because they actually are, but because your eyes adjust fully to the absence of sunlight. The Milky Way stretches across the sky in soft, cloud-like patterns, revealing details you could never see from Earth. Constellations familiar from home appear sharper, their shapes cleaner, as though someone has outlined each star with deliberate precision. But the most captivating sight of all is the Earth, hanging in the sky like a glowing blue and white sphere, unmoving, always in the same place if you stand on the near side of the moon. It does not rise or set the way the moon does when viewed from Earth. Instead, it drifts gently with tiny motions caused by lunar libration, swaying slightly from side to side, but never leaving its anchor point in the sky. You could stare at it for hours, watching clouds swirl slowly across its surface, observing continents shift through daylight and darkness, seeing storms form and dissipate from a viewpoint no one on Earth ever experiences. In the stillness of lunar night, the Earth looks delicate, almost fragile, a small world filled with life floating in a vast sea of emptiness. Standing outside your habitat, you might look up for long periods, feeling an unusual sense of calm. There is no wind to distract you, No sounds carried through the air, no distant activity to draw your attention. Even your own breathing seems quieter here, muffled by the layers of your suit. The universe feels both immense and intimate at the same time, surrounding you completely, yet inviting you to observe it with quiet appreciation. Over time, this view becomes a part of your daily experience. You might find comfort in the constancy of the stars, knowing they will always be there, unchanged and unmoving. The absence of atmospheric distortion gives you the clearest view you will ever have of the cosmos, allowing you to see not just stars, but even faint galaxies, nebulae, and clusters if you take the time to look. This clarity can be humbling, reminding you that the moon is not an isolated world, but a small platform in an endless expanse. Sometimes while watching the Earth, you might reflect on how different life feels from this perspective. All of humanity, every city, every ocean, every voice, rests on that distant sphere, glowing softly in the dark. And here you are, standing on another world, surrounded by silence so complete that even your thoughts seem louder. As minutes stretch into hours, and hours drift into the slow passage of a lunar day, the sky becomes a gentle companion, a reminder of the beauty that exists beyond Earth's atmosphere and the quiet stillness that defines life on the moon. Eventually, the moment comes when you return to the habitat, stepping back inside its warm light and controlled atmosphere. But the memory of the sky stays with you, lingering in your mind, a peaceful backdrop to everything you do long after you leave the window or the observation deck behind. As the weeks turn into months on the moon, one of the most surprising changes you experience is how differently time seems to pass here. Without sunrise and sunset marking clear boundaries between one day and the next, time becomes less about natural cycles and more about the routines you create. Your life settles into a steady rhythm, shaped by your habitat's artificial lighting, your scheduled work shifts, and the quiet tasks that fill your hours. The long stretches of lunar day and night blend into each other so smoothly that your internal sense of time begins to drift, developing a calm, unhurried pace that feels almost meditative. You might wake up each morning to the soft glow of programmed lights, stretch in the low gravity, and go through the same familiar rituals, preparing rehydrated meals, checking the habitat systems, recording data, or stepping outside for observations. At first, these routines feel necessary, helping you adapt to the strangeness of a world where the sun may remain in the same position in the sky for days or even weeks. But eventually, they become comforting, offering structure in a place where nature provides none. As the artificial evening approaches, the lights in your habitat gradually dim, creating a warm amber glow that signals it is time to slow down, to prepare for rest, and to ease into the quiet of lunar night, even if the actual night outside might still be weeks away. Over time, the boundary between days becomes increasingly subtle. You begin to remember events not by which day they happened, but by which activities defined them. The day you cleaned the dust from the solar panels, the day you repaired a communication relay, the day you conducted a geological survey near the edge of a crater. The moon encourages this kind of simplicity, reducing time to a series of moments rather than a countdown of hours. The silence helps as well. Without weather, animals, or natural sounds of any kind, the passage of time feels smoother, less broken by interruptions or distractions. You may find yourself spending long minutes or even hours gazing through observation windows, watching the Earth slowly rotate or observing subtle shifts in shadows on the surface outside. These quiet stretches do not feel wasted. They feel natural, as if the moon itself invites reflection and stillness. In this environment, your perception of weeks and months becomes fluid. What feels like a short period may stretch longer than expected, while events that seem distant in memory might have happened only days before. Yet this sense of time is not disorienting. On the contrary, it often feels peaceful, like the gentle blurring of boundaries that occurs when you are deeply relaxed. The habitat systems help keep your schedule anchored. Timers remind you when to exercise, when to eat, when to monitor environmental controls, and when to rest. But between these reminders, time flows quietly, following the slow, steady rhythm of lunar living. You may find that you speak more softly, move more calmly, and think more slowly, not because you are tired, but because the environment encourages a more mindful pace. Even when working with other crew members, conversations unfold at a gentler tempo, punctuated by long silences that never feel uncomfortable. Eventually, as the months accumulate, you may notice that the moon has subtly reshaped your internal clock. Moments feel longer, tasks feel more intentional, and life in its own way becomes simpler. You may stop counting how many days you have been here and instead focus on how each day feels: quiet, measured, steady. And in this slow-flowing perception of time, you find a kind of peaceful continuity, where every action, no matter how small, contributes to the calm rhythm of living on another world. By the time you prepare for rest each evening, the habitat lights fading to a soft twilight, the moon's influence on your sense of time becomes unmistakable. Life here is not rushed or fragmented, but smooth and uninterrupted, like a gentle current carrying you from one moment to the next. Even in the peaceful rhythm of lunar life, there are natural conditions that require attention, yet they rarely feel threatening. Instead, they become part of the quiet logic of living on a world without atmosphere. One of the first things you learn is that the moon's surface is constantly exposed to radiation from the sun and deep space. But inside your habitat, carefully engineered layers of shielding protect you with calm reliability. These walls contain dense materials designed to absorb and scatter harmful particles, creating an environment where you can live safely for long periods. The awareness of radiation becomes more of a scientific curiosity than a source of fear, another reminder of how different the moon is from Earth. Outside, your suit offers the same steady protection, with layers that reflect sunlight and prevent exposure. The suit's cooling system regulates your temperature as you work, maintaining a comfortable equilibrium even when the lunar surface fluctuates between extreme heat during the long day and deep cold during the long night. These temperature changes, though dramatic in numbers, never reach you directly. The sensation is more like watching distant weather from inside a warm, secure room, observable but never intrusive. Another aspect of the lunar environment is the presence of micrometeorites, tiny fragments of rock and metal that drift through space. On Earth, they burn up harmlessly in the atmosphere, but here, without air to slow them, they occasionally reach the surface. Yet even this phenomenon rarely feels alarming. The habitat is built with protective layers designed to withstand small impacts, and these structures are tested rigorously before anyone arrives. When you hear updates about potential micrometeorite activity, they come through calmly delivered data reports, gentle alerts that simply remind you to follow standard procedures. Over time, you come to view micrometeorites the same way you view the slow cycles of day and night. Another quiet fact of lunar life: the absence of atmosphere also means that sound cannot travel outside, so even if something impacts the surface, you would not hear it. This silence creates a sense of detachment from these events, turning them into distant occurrences that do not disturb the tranquility of your surroundings. Another challenge of lunar living involves the fine dust that coats the surface. Lunar dust clings to surfaces due to its sharp edges and electrostatic charge, but you learn techniques to manage it calmly. Brushing your suit carefully before re-entering the habitat, sealing tools into compartments, using airlock systems with gentle jets of filtered air. These routines become familiar, almost meditative, as you integrate them into the rhythm of your day. Equipment checks are equally important, but they do not create tension or urgency. Instead, they follow a simple protocol: verifying oxygen reserves, monitoring pressure valves, examining seals, running diagnostics on solar panels and communication relays. These tasks reinforce the reliability of your environment, reminding you that each component is functioning correctly. Even when you need to make adjustments or minor repairs, the process feels steady and controlled. Communications with Earth bring regular updates about solar activity, environmental measurements, and scientific forecasts. These updates are delivered in a calm, deliberate tone, helping you maintain awareness without feeling overwhelmed. You follow the guidelines, check the necessary data logs, and continue your day with quiet confidence. And as you become more familiar with the moon's natural conditions, its silence, its temperature shifts, its radiation patterns, you begin to understand that life here is less about reacting to dangers and more about peacefully adapting to a world that simply operates by different rules. The systems around you, the routines you follow, and the calm predictability of your tasks all contribute to a sense of security. Eventually, these elements blend into the background of your experience, creating an environment where even the harshest aspects of lunar reality become just another part of the steady, unhurried rhythm of your daily life. Life on the moon does not isolate you as much as some might imagine. Rather, it creates a unique form of connection, quiet, steady, and deeply meaningful. With only a small group of people sharing the habitat with you, relationships develop naturally through the slow, deliberate pace of each day. Conversations unfold gently, often in soft tones, carried by the hum of air recyclers and the faint vibration of machines. There are no crowds, no noise, no interruptions. Instead, you talk while preparing meals or during routine equipment checks, sharing thoughts that might feel rushed or overlooked on Earth. The reduced gravity even influences interactions. Movements are softer, gestures slower, and body language more open, as if the entire environment encourages calmness. Over time, you begin to understand your crewmates on a deeper level, not through dramatic events, but through the quiet details of daily life. The way someone adjusts the lighting in a room, the particular rhythm of their steps in low gravity, the thoughtful silence they offer when standing beside you at the observation window. Even simple tasks like repairing equipment or reviewing data together become moments of shared experience, building trust and familiarity. There is a sense of companionship that comes from living in such a remote place, where each person contributes to the steady functioning of the habitat. These bonds do not rely on intensity, they rely on presence, consistency, and the gentle rhythm of lunar living. When you speak with loved ones on Earth, the slight communication delay creates a calmer kind of conversation. You say a sentence, wait, listen, and respond. The pauses feel natural, giving each word more weight and allowing you to reflect more deeply before you speak. Messages exchanged in this way often feel more thoughtful, more intentional, and less hurried than typical conversations on Earth. Even though distance separates you physically, the connection remains, strengthened by the clarity that comes from living in a quiet place where distractions are few. The solitude of the moon can also bring introspection. With so much silence around you, your thoughts become clearer, drifting gently like dust settling on the lunar surface. You may spend long moments reflecting on your life back home, on the vastness of space, or on the simple reality of standing on a world that has existed unchanged for billions of years. Yet this introspection rarely feels heavy. Instead, it feels peaceful, like slowly turning the pages of a book you've always carried with you. The moon inspires a calm acceptance of yourself, allowing you to see your thoughts without rushing through them. There is a comfort in knowing that each day follows a steady pattern: work, meals, exercise, rest, and quiet moments shared with others. These routines create a sense of community, even within the small group that inhabits the base. You may gather in the common room during the dimmed evening lighting, sharing stories, watching Earth rotate through the windows, or simply sitting together in calm silence. These quiet gatherings become some of the most cherished moments of lunar life, grounding you emotionally and reminding you that you are not alone. Even celebrations take on a peaceful tone, Birthdays, mission milestones, or small achievements might be marked with simple gestures. Perhaps a shared dessert, a message from home played aloud for the group, or a photograph taken with the earth in the background. There is no noise, no fanfare, just the steady warmth of human connection in a place where life is pared down to its simplest elements. And so, as the days blend into months, you find that life on the moon shapes your emotions in subtle but profound ways. You become more patient, more attentive, more aware of the quiet beauty in small moments. Friendships deepen not through dramatic events, but through the slow weaving of shared routines. Even solitude feels nurturing rather than lonely, offering space to breathe, think, and simply exist. In the end, living on the moon teaches you that connection does not depend on noise or speed. It grows in the stillness, in the calm repetition of daily life, and in the quiet understanding that you and your companions are experiencing something extraordinary together, one peaceful day at a time. As the months of your lunar life draw to a close, you begin to realize how deeply the moon has shaped you, not through dramatic events, but through the quiet, steady influence of its silence, its stillness, and its gentle gravity. The routines that once felt unfamiliar have become second nature, woven into your days like threads of a tapestry that unfolds slowly, one moment at a time. From the soft hum of the habitat systems to the long contemplative walks across the powdery surface, everything on the moon encourages you to move with intention, to breathe deeply, and to appreciate the subtle details of existence that often go unnoticed on Earth. You start to understand that life here is not defined by what is missing, but by what it reveals. The rhythm of your own thoughts, the simplicity of shared routines, the beauty of watching shadows stretch across a landscape frozen in time. In the stillness of lunar night, you might stand at the observation window and watch the Earth glow softly in the distance, its slow rotation, a quiet reminder of the world you once took for granted. From this vantage point, Earth feels simultaneously vast and delicate, suspended in the blackness like a fragile orb of color and movement. You notice how the clouds swirl across its surface, how sunlight paints its edges in shades of blue and gold, and how the continents drift in and out of shadow. And as you watch, you begin to feel a sense of connection, not only to the people and places you love, but to the journey you've taken here, to the calm strength you've discovered within yourself, and to the extraordinary perspective that comes from living on another world. Inside the habitat, the warm glow of evening lights creates a peaceful atmosphere. You might sit with your crewmates, sharing a quiet meal, or simply enjoying each other's company, the soft clink of utensils grounding you in the present moment. The conversations drift gently, without urgency, shaped by the slow cadence of lunar time. Even silence feels full here, carrying a sense of companionship that does not rely on words. You notice how your thoughts have softened, how your mind settles more easily, how your breath aligns with the gentle rhythms of life on the moon. And as you prepare for rest, you take one last look at the world outside. The lunar surface stretches before you, quiet, ancient, unchanging. The shadows lie still, the horizon curves gently, and the stars shine with a clarity you have never seen before. It is a view you could never fully describe to someone who has not stood here, a view that stays with you long after you close your eyes. Lying in your sleeping pod, you feel the soft pull of low gravity supporting your body in a way that eases every muscle. The faint hum of the habitat surrounds you, steady and reassuring, like the quiet breathing of a friend keeping watch. You close your eyes, letting the memories of your time here drift through your mind. The first step onto the powdery ground, the long journeys across silent plains, the slow arc of Earthrise over the distant horizon. Each memory settles gently, like dust returning to the surface, until your thoughts become soft and weightless. On the moon, sleep comes differently. It is not pushed by exhaustion or hurried by schedules. It arrives gradually, like a calm tide, carrying you deeper with each breath. And as you drift into rest, you feel a quiet gratitude for the experiences you've had, for the perspective you've gained, and for the peaceful simplicity that the moon has shown you. Life here has taught you that even in the vast emptiness of space, there is a profound sense of presence, a kind of stillness that reveals the quiet beauty of being alive. And so, as your journey on the moon gently concludes, you understand that the world you are returning to will feel both familiar and new. You will carry this silence with you, this calmness, this way of noticing the small, steady rhythms of life. The moon has left its mark on you, not with noise or spectacle, but with quiet clarity. And even long after you leave its surface behind, a part of you will always remember what it felt like to live among the stars, in a place where time slows, thoughts settle, and the universe feels close enough to touch.